Support for WCBU's On Deck comes from Jaguar Land Rover Peoria on Allen Road, offering personalized service to customers from their first visit to the store to when they drive their new Land Rover home. More at jaguarlandroverpeoria.com.
A Peoria man's journey to Christian ministry starts in federal prison. That's just one of the things you want to hear about to start your day for Tuesday, August 27th. I'm Colin Shope, and this is WCBU's On Deck. First on deck today, the Peoria Tribe of Indians of Oklahoma celebrates the first business collaboration in recent history with the city that bears their name. The Peoria Riverfront Museum unveiled 14 wooden backlit jewel glass display cases built by the tribe on Monday. Chief Craig Harper says the collaboration, from design to final product, took around 2 years.
First steps are always the most important. I hope Peoria knows the ambassador they have with John Morris and the Riverfront Museum, the way he represents this community, the way he opens those doors for those opportunities and relationships outside of this community.
On display in the cases are around 100 waterfowl decoys, with roughly half of them on long-term loan from the American Folk Art Museum in New York City. Harper says it's appropriate for the cases to feature decoys, an invention of indigenous people.
First Americans, one of our great skill sets, one of our real great skill sets is to take a practical thing and make it beautiful. And so we see these artists that have done that exact same thing. They took a practical thing, they put their individual artistic impression onto it and made it beautiful.
The other 50 or so decoys come from collections around Illinois, including a handful made by residents of Peoria in the early to mid-20th century. The decoys and their handcrafted cases are on display at the museum now. Here are some other stories we're following in the WCBU newsroom. It's been hot in central Illinois all weekend, but the peak happens today. And the driver of a District 150 bus involved in a crash last week was cited for running a red light. Plus, the Peoria County Farm Bureau says all signs point towards an excellent crop for this year's harvest. You can find more of these stories and all the details at WCBU.org. Stephen Snook's path to Christian ministry wasn't like most. His story begins not in seminary school, but in federal prison. The Peoria man told WCBU's Tim Shelley about how that unconventional journey led him to Peoria and to writing a book.
It wasn't just one bad mistake that Stephen Snook said landed him a 19-year sentence in federal prison. It was a lifetime of them. Snook says he was a career criminal serving out his third sentence, 3 years of which were in solitary confinement. He continued to run his drug trafficking operation from within prison. That ultimately led to his brother getting into a serious car crash during a high-speed police chase. And that's when Snook said he turned to religion for the first time.
I didn't know how to pray, but I told the Lord, if you save my brother's life, I will give you every breath for the rest of my life. And something happened, brother.
Snook says he didn't grow up religious. He describes his Central Illinois upbringing as chaotic and berserk, and his parents as alcoholics who sometimes fired guns in the house. After his brother was injured, Snook took up reading the Bible and fasted for a week and a half. When he came out, he found his brother was going to live, and says he was a changed man. When he was released from prison a little over 2 years ago, Snook says he didn't know how to send an email, let alone set up a social media account. But he did have a vision for a business creating framed wall displays of Bible verses. He connected with the former director of the Peoria Next Innovation Center at Bradley University while still living in a Peoria halfway house.
And he helped me. And he taught me how to read a text and an email, and I developed this product. But eventually, it was never about that business. It was about God putting me in a position to learn the things that I needed to learn, to develop to catch up to speed with society.
Snook has since sold his business and given away his remaining stock of frames. He says he and his wife are now focused on ministry work, primarily in places like prisons, drug rehabilitation centers, and homeless encampments. The idea to write a book about his life story began while still serving out his prison sentence. Detainees were only allotted a limited amount of paper, but he says he got a little help from others.
Incredibly, pens started showing up at my cell. People would just walk by and drop them off. Paper would just, what nobody knew that God had put this on my heart to write this. I started to write the manuscript, for my very first memory of life. I sent it out 5 pages at a time.
Snook mailed those pages to a friend in Florida. When he got out of prison, he contacted that friend and found out that he had actually kept those writings. They were assembled into Snook's first book entitled Extraordinary Solitude, Prison, Razor Blades, and Jesus. But Snook says it's not just an autobiography.
My life story is in there, but it also is an instruction manual for anybody that has struggled with addiction, with mental health issues, somebody that maybe has been incarcerated, is just more spiritually hungry.
A portion of the proceeds from every book goes back into purchasing more books to give away for free, but Snook says it's not really about the money for him.
We just tell people, if you can't buy one, if you can't afford one, we'll just give you one. And we also have the audio book. We recorded that, the audio book here in Peoria locally, and it's in my voice.
When asked what he would tell the version of himself from 25 years ago, Snook says it's a difficult question to answer.
I believe that all things work out for good, I would certainly not want to hurt anyone that I've hurt in my life, because when you are a drug trafficker, you're hurting a lot of people. And I would certainly pray that away, and not do that. But how would I have gotten to where I am now without having gone through what I went through? I don't believe it's possible.
But he believes he was chosen by God for ministry work for a reason.
He found Gideon in a hole. He found Joseph in prison. He found me in prison. This is where he likes to work from sometimes. He will take somebody there, and then he will elevate them to that next spot where he wants to place them, but only after they've went through that experience of solitude with God.
Snook's book is available at extraordinarysolitude.org and through Amazon. An audiobook is available through Audible. For WCBU's On Deck, I'm Tim Shelley.
Now, before we let you go, tonight is a regular meeting of the Peoria City Council. Those meetings start at 6 p.m., and you can hear them live from WCBU on 89.9 FM or streaming at WCBU.org. And that's all for today. You can subscribe to WCBU's On Deck podcast on the NPR app, Apple, Spotify, or YouTube Music.